Hello, y'all. Hope you're having a fantastic day today. Well, I will greet y'all. I'm back. You may be like, you never left. Well, I planned out videos earlier this week because I had no internet in my house, as I've told y'all. But the internet's back. And my cats are currently enjoying messing with me today because I've been recording a bunch of videos and I'm about to edit them all and get them planned out. But yeah, so a little unboxing video. You're like, what are you unboxing, Nobodium, Caden, whatever you want to call me. Call me dipshit if you want. So I ordered something that's kind of special, at least kind of to me, because it's Markiplier from North Korea. I got the signed version because why not? And hardcover. And would you mind? I'm doing something here. Making sure I'm recording. I'm panicking. But yeah, it's something I ordered. That would be cool to like show y'all. So this is the cover. It's been shown already all over the internet. But the back of it says, a North Korean refugee's daughter chronicles of her family epic journey from war-torn Korea to the American suburbs, culminating in the birth and upbringing of YouTuber sensation Markiplier, told with resilience, heartbreak, humor, and unflinching candor. Which I am so happy to get because I've been wondering where it was. I was like, am I going to be able to get it? And I finally came in. I was just wondering. She signed it as Markiplier. Oh, I love that. I love that we as a community decided, yeah, it's Markiplier. And she's never wanted to let it down. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I do want to read it, and I might just give like a overview once I do read it. Once I decide to. I really do want to read it, but I don't know. Should I like read it to the world? Because like I feel it'd be kind of cool just to read it all out to the world, and people could find like listen to it who can't actually afford it or get it. So if that's something y'all are interested in, I would 100% do it for y'all. And I don't mean to be like push people from buying it, because I'm fairly certain only a few were not. There's a limited amount, that were given out, and so on, which is kind of sad. But I'm honestly surprised they haven't done it. That like a short history book on the fish box, or move your tail. No one wants to see your butthole. No one wants to see your butthole. But yeah, little video. I could read chapter 1 just to finish this out. Y'all are annoying today. Okay. I will read chapter 1. Just do it. My father escapes from North Korea. My story begins when my dad, Chi Sung-soo, was 16 years old and living in North Korea. My father was the youngest of two boys whose family had been wealthy landlords for generations in province of North Pyongyang-do. In the town of, I'm going to butcher half these words. I do promise. I don't mean to be like stupid about it. I'm saying sorry in advance. Town of Sinuiju, located near the northern border of China. When my dad turned 12 years old, my grandparents arranged for him to get married. They had chosen a bride who was 5 years older than my dad, since they were following the customs of ancient Korea culture on marriage. At the time in Korea, it was not unusual to be married at such a young age. The purpose was that the groom's family would pay the expenses to the bride's family. 4 years after they got married, my dad first wife gave birth to a baby girl. At the time, my dad was attending high school with the hope someday becoming a doctor. Unfortunately, less than a month after his daughter's birth, on June 25th, 1950, everything was about to be taken away from him and his family. On that hot summer night in 1950, the Korean War broke out, led by the North Korea dictator Kim Il-sung. I don't know much on like European history or like history outside the U.S. besides what they teach in school, so I don't know if I'm even saying words right or certain things. He had incited a Korean Civil War using his Communist Party tactics and was supported by their highly trained military after the end of World War II. In 1945, Kim Il-sung and his party took political power and control over the northern part of Korea. Kim quickly rose to power with the help of China and the Soviet Union in 1948. When North Korea became a communist state, it had a huge effect on people like my grandparents who owned vast lands and properties. Under communism, all citizens lost power over their wealth and freedom. Starting in 1948, the North Korean Communist Party began enforcing a new law that prevented all private ownership. Ownership would be abolished under communism, including private ownership of houses and the land it was built on, in addition to all farm properties. Shortly after North Korea attacked, my grandparents received a draft notice for their two sons, requiring them to report to Northern Korean military base since they were born. Their two sons had never had to work in fields, hold a gun, or fight against anyone. My grandparents did not need a magic crystal ball to see their son's future once they had been drafted by the communist military. The family knew that their boys would be sent out ahead of trained North Korean soldiers to become a cannon fodder. Just 2 years before, 1948, when North Korea had first come under communist rule and had stolen their money and property, my grandparents had felt if they had no choice. This time, however, they were determined to save their precious boys' lives. My grandparents made an escape plan for their sons in the middle of a dark summer night. The boys were sent away to unknown of South Korea. The journey to South Korea would be primarily on foot, so they could carry only several hastily packed suitcases. So they could carry, I'm sorry, I'm not the best at reading, so I end up backtracking. Not knowing that this would be the last time they would see each other as a family. My grandparents, my dad's wife, choked back their sobs as their farewells to each other. The boys wiped away their tears as they continued walking in the direction of the unknown fate. They started walking bravely, leaving behind all their cherished young memories in Seonju until they had finished the many miles of rigorous hiking through mountains, deep valley, streams, and towns, the fields, until they reached South Korea. And there's that little picture right there. The path they took, or, well, I guess it's of that town to the town they went to as a line. It must have been unbearably difficult, and I'm sure that their hearts were broken as they contemplated their future in the scorching weather. As they walked, they clutched their empty, growling stomachs by ignoring their hunger and continuing at a fast pace. They had been able to escape from the spying eyes of North Korean soldiers. After several weeks of dangerous journey, the two brothers finally reached a small village called Pahu, located not too far from the soon-to-be-called Panmunjom demilitarized zone. Now in South Korea, it was totally up to them to make ends meet for their survival. As my dad and his brother got closer to the village, Really, girl? I lost my track. They become part of a large group of homeless refugees who were also trying to escape from the communist invasion. By the time my dad and his brother arrived in South Korea, they had already spent most of their mother's precious gold and jade jewels that she had packed for them to use in exchange for food and sleeping arrangements. After spending their mother's lost gold ring in exchange for renting a humble bedroom and bordering house, they had come to the realization that their financial situation was quickly deteriorating and almost desperate. Compared to their carefree lives they once enjoyed, where everything was given to them, now it was totally up to them to survive. My dad's older brother, Sungmin, had been able to find a hard labor job due to his tall, muscular build. My dad was unable to find work and fell in a deep depression as he waited for Sungman to return to their room with some food to share each day. Sungman generously shared everything with him, and they were able to stave off hunger for a few months until the day of Incheon landing on September 15, 1950. U.S. Army General Douglas MacArthur was assigned to the top commander of all Allied forces for the landing. The military operation, the first major conflict of the Korean War, was made to force North Korean army to retreat from South Korean land. General MacArthur careful planning led to quasi-victory over the last 3 months. The South Korean government and its military were nearly defeated and were not precariously holding on to the Pusan located at the end of the Korean peninsula. Since the Incheon landing, the war had now turned favorably towards South Korean government and its people. One at the beginning of a very cold approaching winter, inside the freezing tiny room that two brothers shared, they were devouring their first meal of the day, which someone had managed to buy from them despite the scarcity of food. Sungman broke the silence and told my dad they had enlisted in the South Korean voluntary military force as the South Korean, which was fighting alongside the UN forces, changing the North Koreans made to their border near China after the situation had turned in favor of the South Korean Democratic Party. At that moment, South Korea and its allies were on a winning streak, and the South Korean government was desperately recruiting people to join their military forces. As soon as my dad heard Sungman's news, he decided to follow his older brother's footsteps and hoped that the two brothers would return to North Korea and reunite with their loving family. The very next day, my dad followed his older brother to the recruitment facility at the South Korean military base. However, both brothers' dreams were shattered. After a brief physical examination by the doctor, my dad was rejected. Although my father was well-built, handsome young man, his right leg was much shorter in length than the left one. Oh, interesting. That's weird. Sorry to hear they had that condition. A village doctor had damaged my dad's cardiac nerve while removing a cyst from his left hip area when he was a very young boy. After his brother Sungmin left to fight the communists, my dad felt totally alone for the first time in his life. His life seemed like it was spinning out of control. His thoughts returned to that of a year before. Every year on November 22nd, his mother cooked special rice cakes along with his favorite dishes to celebrate his birthday. Now, instead of celebrating his 17th birthday with his family, he had to face the reality. How was he able to find enough food to survive, not to mention to pay that rent money? His new reality dictated that it was time for my dad to actively search for any kind of work. After several days of looking, my dad managed to find a work as a helper at a local market. At that time, the indoor plumbing system had not yet been installed. Words, Caden. How do I mess up that bad? In most stories, my dad was hired to deliver those heavy loads of water buckets to local restaurants. The work was extremely brutal and physical. He felt there were no other choices as time went on, and my dad became physically strong and managed to keep up with his fellow workers. My dad got along easily with everyone with his handsome face and ready smile. On July 27, 1953, armistice agreement was signed, ending organized combat operations, leaving the Korean Peninsula divided at the 38th parallel, much as it had been since the close of World War II in 1945. After the Korean armistice agreement, all communications between North and South Korea completely ceased. After hearing the news, my dad lost all hope returning to his homeland and reuniting with his family. Tragically, my father received a letter from the South Korean government stating that his older brother, Sungman, had lost his life in combat close to his hometown. That has to suck. I feel bad. Like, father went to war and almost made it there. It's like what they do on TikTok. It's like, I was in hell staring at heaven or whatever. It's sad to hear. Sungman had fought the communists long enough to almost fulfill his dream of returning to his hometown. My dad, upon hearing of his brother's death, fell into a deep depression. Still just 19, my father had survived unimaginable challenges at this point in his life. He must have felt strongly that he had no reason to keep on living. He began to seriously consider ending his life. After 3 restless nights following Sungmin's death, my dad began to develop a suicide plan. At the crack of dawn the next morning, he left the miserable room that he had lived in for 3 years and quickly walked to the bus stop to ride to the demilitarized zone. In his mind, that would be a suitable place to end his life. Oh. It's really sad to see that, and hear that the challenges that he had to go through and how he had to lose his brother. He basically lost all his family, and it probably felt even as if his mother and father probably died to him. That really is sad. Next chapter is called The Birth of Sunakchi, or Markiplier. So that's really heavy. And this is the pictures of I want to assume it was her dad. And they also got a drawn version, I think. So that was chapter 1 of Markiplier from North Korea. I might make this a series where I read the whole book. It might be the only way I could make myself read it. But yeah, it's interesting hearing the troubles that weren't too long ago, really, in the grand scheme of things. Because you think about, like, we haven't been to war in so long, but we're nearly always at war. And then you think about, like, well, World War II wasn't that long. World War II wasn't even 100 years ago, I'm fairly certain. And these was shortly before that, which kind of makes you wonder, like, at what point are we going to go back? And with our world, yeah, I think we're going to be soon. It sucks. But it was really interesting. I'm really interested to get to, like, the mom and how she got to America. And then some of Markiplier's story, maybe. I'm not sure, like, it's going to get to in it. It's probably the early parts of his life. That's still going to be interesting. And to see his, like, how he was raised and the troubles he faced and all that. And if it goes into a little bit of, like, maybe potentially his early career in the YouTube, that would be interesting as well. But why do I need a book if I can just look at what he did on YouTube? But yeah, if you enjoyed me yapping and reading chapter 1 of Markiplier from North Korea, bomb that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to tune into the next one. Alright, bye bye.